further down the list.
Yeah.
One of the first ones I brought up to you was, can Tyrese Maxey make a leap where he's at least in the discussion like Jalen Brunson was and finishing in that top 5? You are often a part of that straw poll with Tim Bontemps for ESPN, and Jalen Brunson
so blame me
in that mix a lot. Jalen Brunson was. Could Tyrese Maxey maybe shock everybody from this number that he has here at plus 25,000 and make your list at some point during the season, Kyle?
I am normally part of ESPN's straw poll. So when Joel is near the top, give me credit. When he's not, it's not my fault at all.
Not his fault.
I only want credit and I want no blame. I just want to make sure that that's clear, since everyone now knows that I'm part of that. As far as Tyrese goes,
yes,
I think it's always tough if you're the second guy on a team, even though Tyrese is all-star, competing for all NBA stuff, it is very difficult to make that jump to you're the guy and you can get into the MVP race. And I think given what we saw end of last season without Joel, their record without Joel would have to be outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
And Tyrese would have to supplant he would have to be game 5 in New York, Tyrese Maxey, and Joel takes a step to the side every time, like almost every game, for the narrative of the team to change. And I just don't see that happening. Now, what I do think is in his favor, Paul George arriving, and I think being comfortable in that third guy role. When Joel is off the floor or Joel is not available, will become the number 2,
mm-hmm.
and Tyrese will have those opportunities to be the guy, and they should be able to win at a higher clip than they did last year. So let's say Tyrese plays, 75 games, that he doesn't suffer any kind of major injuries, knock on wood. Hopefully he doesn't suffer any injuries for that matter, doesn't miss time, and they win high 50s, let's say 57, 58 games, and scores more points, gets closer to 30, and he becomes the go-to guy in crunch time. I think you could squint and see that happen and be like, yeah, there's an outside chance of that happening. I just think it would require so many different things happening at once. Winning with Joel, but being the guy. Winning without Joel, still being the guy.
Right.
And even at the end of the day, you're going to find it tough to shake he has Joel Embiid. So it's not as hard for him as it is, let's say, a Jokic, who's the guy on the team, or let's say Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's the guy in Oklahoma City and is going to be the main driver of that team being potentially the top team in the West. It would be a big change to how this team is viewed, how both players are viewed. I can't see it happening, which is partially why he's at plus 25,000.
Right.
I'm not saying he can't play at that level. It is just, Scottie Pippen was one of the best players in the league, right? And Jordan was always better than him, so that made it easy. Even when he became the guy and they won 50-plus games, he didn't win MVP. He was close. He was in the conversation,
mm-hmm.
but he was not quite there. So
yeah.
I don't really see a reasonable path unless, again, knock on wood that this doesn't happen, unless Joel were to suffer a major injury, he's out for most of the year, and then Tyrese carries them to 50-plus wins, scoring 30 points a game. That's the only real way I think it could happen.
I agree with you. That's not where he is right now, and probably not as long as Joel Embiid is at this level of who he is. It's going to take a lot for Tyrese Maxey to elevate and get to that point where he's going to be in there. But that doesn't mean he cannot get some other individual awards as we go along. We already saw the All-Star piece a season ago. You would imagine that continues, especially if the team success is there. And we'll talk about a few more of those things as we do our season previews over here over these last 2 weeks before training camp gets underway. Media Day, of course, first on the 30th, but it's going to take quite a bit for him to get to that spot. But one thing we do know about him, as we did that 1% show last week, that guy's going to do everything he possibly can to be the best player that he can be for himself individually, carrying himself that way, and then for the team success to follow right behind with that, where hey, he might win a player of the month 1 month. He has the ability
he could be
to
all
do that
NBA.
kind of stuff.
Like I mean, he was not that far off last season.
No.
And that was when he had to, when you get to that point at the end of the year, and those all NBA teams are where people are putting in every factor, right? It's how many games did you play? What was your team success? Blah, 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 blah. It just the list goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the problem for Tyrese was, hey, the team slipped down the stretch and his numbers, his efficiency went down without Joel. And that's okay, right? It was his first real time as like, you're the guy. And there really was no number 2 guy, right? Like Tobias masqueraded as one, but that's not someone you want as your second option for a team that's going places. And so he lost out on it. But that, I think he is absolutely positioned now with Paul's support that they can be better with Andre Drummond, with some of these other guys, to put together a better, more competent product when Joel potentially can't play. He's absolutely in a better position to be an all NBA type of player. And we believe in the talent. We believe in the work ethic. It's, as people are saying in the chat as well, it's you versus everybody in the league. And so even if Tyrese becomes that guy for this team and Joel is I don't think this happens, but Joel takes that step to the side, you have to ask yourself, is his narrative better than Shea or Luka or Jokic or Giannis or any number, or Ant-Man, any number of these guys that could lead their team to an incredible season, put up huge numbers, and are the undisputed, like, you're the captain of your team. You are steering the ship. That's the hardest thing I think that he would have to overcome. It is absolutely no indictment of him.
No.
And again, I think we've talked about this a lot during the offseason. I think it would be good for the team if they can figure out an arrangement that looks sort of like what we saw in the playoffs, where Joel is that, first half, first 3 quarters guy, and Tyrese becomes the if it's a Kobe Shaq dynamic, he's the Kobe, right? Where Shaq would just hammer these teams for 3 quarters and he's dragging everybody up and down the floor. And then when it's time for somebody to use the young legs and stretch teams out and do everything else, it was Kobe. Like, I'm not putting pressure on Tyrese Maxey to be Kobe Bryant. I'm just saying we've seen that sort of little guard, big man relationship. I mean, Andrew Toney's another example. Like, there's a reason when that Sixers team broke through that Andrew Toney was often the guy second halves, fourth quarters.
I got this,
who's
Doc.
running the offense. They're giving him the ball. Little guys who are carrying less weight are not as tired at the end of games. That's just a fact of life when you're, 200 pounds versus 280, 300. You have more to give late in games. So we are expecting Tyrese to take a step up in ways like that. That's just not the difference between, where he's at and MVP of the league.
We all silly like the mayor.